Hello, welcome to Jewish Museum Milwaukee's Museum Moments. My name is Ellie Gettinger. I'm the Education Director at Jewish Museum Milwaukee, and I am delighted to join you today to talk about the Melody Top Theater. And I have to say, we've done over 100 of these. We have so many times that we're putting stuff out there and we get zero replies. And today, I posted this yesterday that this was the topic for this week. And there were so many people who responded that they were excited about this, that they remembered the Melody Top, that they went as kids, that they saw specific performers and specific performances. And it's just amazing to me that this existed for 20 plus years in Milwaukee and attracted the level of talent that it did, and that I get to share this story. And I hope that in sharing it on some level, that maybe someday something like this could happen again. I doubt it because it sounds like a logistical nightmare. I will also say, I'm going to say this at the end as well, I have to thank Dan Pagel at Memories of Melody Top. It's a website that he as a volunteer has put together with lots of great resources about the Melody Top Theater. So if you're interested and you want to go deeper, he has so many pictures and so many articles and so much information and interviews. It's really a tremendous resource and does a fabulous job of telling the Melody Top story. So Melody Top, and if you're watching right now, please comment. Let us know if you attended, if you've been there, what you know of it, and we'll try and get to some of those comments as well. As I'm sharing this, I just want to talk a little bit about its history and how it started. And I think in talking about the Melody Top Theater, you can't talk about Melody Top without talking about its president and treasurer, William Luff. And William Luff got into this business kind of incidentally. He was born in England in 1904. He ends up in an orphanage, coming to America 2 years later, and he ends up in an orphanage for a bit of his childhood before his father can financially take care of him again. And then his father moves the family to Milwaukee, where he becomes just a salesperson. He's selling everything, and he goes into real estate developing after selling everything, I think, from sewing machines to there were so many different things. And in real estate developing, one thing that he picks up is a piece of property at 76th and Good Hope. And a group of speculators come to him and say, hey, we're interested in putting up a tent theater on this property. And William Luff, smart businessman that he is, says, okay, I'll rent you the space. I'm not going to sell you the space, but I'm going to rent you the space. And so he ends up renting this to a group of speculators out of Chicago who had been involved in what was called the Melody Top Theater there. And they invest in the infrastructure and put together, they dig out, a tent, a kind of amphitheater shape that they put a tent over. There's some wonderful articles where it's describing all of the different kind of investments in terms of sound and lighting, and just the fact that you have a tent that isn't blowing over in some of our big winds in Milwaukee is kind of impressive that it was there for that many years. And so he says he's renting them the land, and for 2 years, the Chicago company basically has performances that are done in Chicago and that are done up here in Milwaukee. It sounds like they were using the Milwaukee base to fund what was happening in Chicago, and they hadn't done a lot of investment, and within 2 years they were in the red. And so William Luff buys the theater concept from them and the theater itself, and he then goes into business and becomes he goes into show business with having never experienced this before, and becomes kind of they call him Uncle Billy within this, but he hires a number of people who are with the theater for many years to take on all of the artistic direction pieces. And the Melody Top is in the grand tradition of a summer stock theater. I always think of that Judy Garland, Gene Kelly feature in which they're putting on a show in a barn. And it's that kind of thing where you're putting on a show in a tent. But these shows are incredibly high quality. They're coming in with, big New York talent, Actors Equity, card holders, things like that. They have a live orchestra, although it's smaller. And it's a theater in the round, which I think is a really incredibly challenging thing if you think about it from a staging standpoint, to stage a musical so that it makes sense for everybody who's there and able to see it. And it opens in 1963, and they do about 7 performances a summer, starting in June to mid to late September. And again, this is what it looked like. It was on an open field in kind of 76th and Good Hope area. And, just a really active theater group. The thing that I think was really shocking to me is just how big the names were of people who came to the Melody Top. And these were people who were in the heights of their careers as they're coming here. You've got George Chakiris and Rita Moreno after West Side Story, the movie, that these are Oscar winners. Leonard Nimoy, Spock is here playing Fagin in Oliver. Dorothy Lamour, these are big name people who are coming to Melody Top and basically spending a week or 2 of their lives in here doing an incredible amount of production value for, and we'll talk about this a little bit, you're doing an incredible investment in very quick time to get a show on the road and then have 7 to 10 performances of that show. And then it goes dark again. And then the next show is up. And it's a super fast pace all summer within the Melody Top audiences. So one of the people who comes is Betty White, and she is in a performance in 1965. And this is her talking about it on Password, which was actually hosted by her husband, Alan Ludden. And she's explaining what she's going to do that summer.
Why, Betty White.
Hi, Alan Ludden.
Well, it's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
What are your plans for the summer, Miss White?
Oh, dear. I'm taking, no fool like an old fool, I'm taking singing and dancing lessons. I'm going to do South Pacific in Milwaukee at the Melody Top, opening June 22nd.
Well, good luck.
And only you and my doctor know how hard it is to learn to dance at my age.
Well, good luck with South Pacific, and then you're going to do Bell Book and Candle.
Bell Book and Candle in Warren, Columbus for Johnny.
So Betty White's coming to Milwaukee for the summer, and she's in fact learning to sing and dance for her time in Milwaukee. I love it. I love this clip, and I love that Memories of Melody Top could point me to it. And it's just the fact, there's actually a great interview on the Memories of Melody Top where one of the apprentices, who was 17 at the time, when Betty White, who is a seasoned performer, is getting up, she's at the top of the stage, and every night before her performance, she just needed a hug from this person. And it was always this sense of, I just need one hug for bravery. And she would get that hug and then she'd go out and perform. But this 17-year-old high school apprentice had this experience of working with a consummate professional and seeing what a professional theater is like in that moment, and being part of not just making sure the show would go on, but that the actor was comfortable in performing. Chita Rivera. Chita Rivera came a couple of times, and this is actually a quote from one of her fellow actors during a production of Irma la Douce. And it was a production in which she didn't break her foot, she tore the ligaments in it. This guy says, Chita always worked on all 8 cylinders when she was performing. She's one of the most giving performers, both for the audience and definitely for her fellow performers. And the one thing, she missed one performance in this 2-week run because she tore ligaments in her foot, and she was devastated that even in coming back that she wasn't able to do the choreography in the kind of way that she felt was most fitting, that it had to be modified. And she was like, people are here to see me dance. This is what I'm known for. But it's just amazing to know that you could come out and see Chita Rivera in a small theater, although it is quite large. It housed over 2,000 people. And there was always this kind of fiddling. Mr. Luff was always trying to fiddle to get a few more people in. They had a huge number of subscriptions, and they kept their ticket price very reasonable, to make sure that this was accessible theater. Here is Leonard Nimoy as Fagin. And this is from the Milwaukee Sentinel, but this is a news article the next season that they are kind of going through the craziness of what it takes to get a Melody Top production up. And it says, in the final week before a production opens, the Melody Top spins with activity. Compared with the 7 days preceding this summer staging of Oliver, For example, the off-season flurry of preparations will seem like slow motion. The Oliver that unfolds on August 1, opening night, will represent just 40 hours of intensive rehearsal. The spin begins slowly with Milwaukee arrival of production star Leonard Nimoy. And in his time here, he has to do interviews and publicity. He has to get his blocking, and he has to get all of the staging right. They're creating the costumes and getting the costumes in as this 40 hours is that week before the performance is happening. All the while, they are producing a whole other production in the Melody Top, so that they never actually get to use the stage as it's set for Oliver until the Monday before that show opens, when the other show is finally cleared. So it's just remarkable, the turnarounds and the artistic work of all of these really dedicated craftsmen, some of whom are, people who work at, say, the Milwaukee Rep and some of the other theater groups here during the season, and others of whom are coming from all over to be part of the Melody Top. But just a remarkable thing. These are kind of famous people who were famous when they came. There are a number of people who perform at the Melody Top before they're well known. Great example, Michael Bennett, who is the guy who originated Chorus Line, directed a production of West Side Story in the 1960s. And one of his cast members, the guy playing Riff, was a very young Christopher Walken. So if you happen to be at that West Side Story in, I think, 1967, you saw Christopher Walken before he even appeared in Annie Hall or any of the other things that went on to launch his career. Similarly, you get Broadway talent that comes in and then becomes much bigger. So I have two great examples here from the 1960s and 70s. Tommy Tune, and I always thought that was a stage name, but that is his actual name, came in and did summer stock here at Melody Top, including everything from being a performer to at times a choreographer. You can see him there in the middle of the performance there. I believe that's The Boyfriend. It's one of his shows. There were a lot of shows he was actually in. He's 6'6" tall, so he really stood out on stage before going and creating all of his body of work on Broadway, for which he was given the Lifetime Achievement Award and the Lifetime Achievement Tony in 2019. But it's a really impressive achievement. You also can see a very young Christine Ebersol here in the 1981 production of My Fair Lady. She came back in 1984 and performed in Evita. And this is her accepting her Tony for Grey Gardens. So, I mean, it's really first-class talent that you're getting before they become established in New York, before they have made a name like Tommy Tune or Christine Ebersol. So this has been such a fun story to research. Mr. Luff dies in 1984. By 1985, things are already slowing down. There's a tremendous amount of competition in the summer between the festivals and Summerfest and all of the other things going on, and even within the theatrical community for the rest of the year. And it's much harder to continue to get these bookings and interests and all of these pieces. And after the 1986 season, they announced the 1987 season, but it never happens. Even more sad in terms of thinking about how this could be reconstituted, in 1991, there's a fire at the Melody Top, what becomes a dome. They change the tent out for a dome, and the area is destroyed. So we can't go there physically, but we have these wonderful reminiscences and the wonderful stories and so many things. I have to thank again Dan Pagel and Memories of Melody Top. They offered so much insight into the theater itself, and thanks to him for his diligence in tracking people down who were part of the theater. I also want to say we had several pieces in our collection about the Melody Top, thanks to Dorothy Myers, Mr. Luff's daughter, and the Sidney and Lorraine Plotkin collections, where they collected all of the Melody Top programs. I always want to thank our supporter, Robin Cohen. And if you want to learn more about Jewish Museum Milwaukee, you should do that at jewishmuseummilwaukee.org, or come and visit us. We're in our last week of the WPA exhibit, and we'd love to have you in. Thanks so much.